Our next guest is one of the top middleweights in the UFC, a one-time knockout of the night and performance of the night bonus winner. Tim Kennedy is joining us on the line. Tim, welcome to Submission Radio.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Always a pleasure, Tim. Always a pleasure. Now, you've been doing some things recently, like hunting to take your mind off MMA for a while. First question is, how has that been going? Tell us about your big hunting trip.
Well, first couple of weeks after my fight was bow hunting season, so we went to Louisiana and did some whitetail, and people don't understand how much work hunting is. It's not like you go out and deer just comes out. You're filling feeders, you're tilling soil, you're planting corn, switching out cameras, changing batteries. And then the second weekend I was up in the mountains of New Mexico, taking a buddy that got hurt real bad in the war on a bear hunt. And so we're riding horses and climbing up mountains and tracking down these big brown beasts. So it's been a lot of fun. Really, really enjoyed this hunting season so far, and just keeping myself real busy.
Wow, that sounds like a pretty big operation. Usually when me and Casper think about hunting, we think of one guy with a gun sort of sitting in the bushes waiting for a deer to run by. Tell us, is there anyone from Jackson Winklejohns that enjoys doing hunting with you? Any of the other guys get into hunting with you?
Yeah. Cowboy, obviously. If it's outdoors, he wants to be involved in it. He's a monster when it comes to fowl hunting. Ducks and pheasant. He's pretty talented. The weekend that I was going bear hunting in New Mexico, he was going to come with me, but had to go to Las Vegas for I think a NASCAR trip or something. So I missed out on that. But a lot of guys. Greg Jackson loves to shoot. And, he's more of a sportsman. Shooting. He's not as much of a hunter, but there's a ton of dudes. Andrew Craig here in Austin goes with me a lot. So it's I think there's a surprising percentage of UFC guys that are really outdoorsmen at heart, and they just they fight just to support their hobby of being an outdoor guy.
Yeah, well, we saw Chad Mendes. Yeah, he had a picture of him with a bear, so I think he's pretty down with hunting as well. Tim, you're talking to two guys that have never. Well, actually, we've shot guns, but we've never gone hunting. I'm just curious. We saw on your Twitter you mentioned how you found a bear and it had an arrow through it or something to that degree, and you weren't too happy about it. I'm assuming there's some kind of rule with hunting. Are you able to just explain that to us?
Well, I'm not saying that poor bear that got hit with the arrow was being poached, but that a good hunter is conservationist first. The only time that I'm not ever hurting animals, is for food, and I use every single inch of that animal, every ounce of its meat, every bit of its fat, and every inch of its hide. I use everything. And the animals that I do get, it's an environmentally particular way, like a bear that we were shooting in New Mexico. What they do is they count the number of bears that they have in each region. They know how much food there is for each bear, and they say, okay, we need to get rid of this number of bears, otherwise they're going to starve or they're going to kill each other. So the best thing for the support in the life cycle of a bear is to keep that healthy balance of the ecology system. So so then you pay a bunch of money to get a permit, and you know exactly where you're supposed to go to get that exact bear. So I was the one with the permit, so if I come across a bear, that bear is not supposed to be there. That means somebody shot that bear improperly.
Okay.
And even worse, every time I've ever tried to shoot an animal, whether it's an arrow or a gun, that animal goes to the ground and it's dead by the time it hits the ground. And that's something that my dad was very strict with us when we were being taught how to hunt. It's about ethics. It's about integrity, and you should never, ever, ever take a shot that you're not 100% confident what the result is going to be. So if I'm going to pull the trigger or I'm going to loose an arrow, I know that animal is going to go to the ground because that arrow is going to go straight to the lung, it's going to go straight into the heart, and the animal is going to collapse 2 steps later. If I'm shooting a gun, that bullet's going to go through a lung, it's going to go in the heart, and it's going to go out the other side and the other lung. I know that every time I pull the trigger. That obviously wasn't the case. I found this arrow in the back hind quarter of a bear. So one, ethically, it's a bad shot. It's an irresponsible shot. it's a selfish shot. It's one that, you know, if I was there with that hunter, I'd punch him in the face. But then even worse was that guy shouldn't have been shooting that bear in the first place. So I was pretty fired up about it. You know, I really love animals. I care about them. And, you know, so when I come across one that, you know, that bear died horribly, it died painfully, I'd love to, you know, straighten that out with that hunter or puncher.
Yeah, now that you've explained the way it works, yeah, I absolutely understand, totally.
Yeah, absolutely, some fascinating stuff too. Now, you know, something else that's happened recently is there was a big middleweight bout in Sydney. Me and Casper were there a few days ago, you know, last weekend. What were your thoughts? Did you get a chance to watch the Rockhold Michael Bisping fight? And what were your thoughts on the performances from both men?
I didn't even need to watch it. You know, everybody had asked how that fight was going to go, and I said that Bisping was going to last 5 minutes with Luke. You know, I have a lot of respect for Bisping, and actually a lot more since we've fought. You know, he's come to my defense regarding PEDs, and you know, like when I spoke out about other guys, he kind of backed me up. And then after my last fight against Yoel Romero, he was very outspoken about it. You know, so I was like, wow, I was very surprised. With that said, Luke is a monster. I had no doubts that Luke was going to finish him within 5 minutes, and that ended up to be exactly what happened. I couldn't see a way that Mike could have won that fight. I think Luke could have beat him on his feet, could have beat him on the ground, could have out-wrestled him, could have outboxed him, could have out-kickboxed him. You know, there was no way for Mike to win that fight. So there was no surprise there. I looked it up afterwards and I was like, oh, yeah, so there it was.
Well, you hit the nail on the head. He basically beat him, you know, first on the feet and then on the ground. But you mentioned obviously Yoel Romero. It's been just over a month and a half, or about a month and a half since UFC 178, and obviously the hunting trip was to take your mind off MMA and things like that. You know, where are you at mentally, and you know, do you feel like you're ready to sort of come back to MMA and start thinking about it and training and looking for a fight?
Nah, I'm still pissed off, you know. At the sport, at the ref, but most importantly at myself. You know, I made a huge mental error in that fight. I thought the fight was over a few different times. You know, I thought I'd knock him out. I thought John pulled me off him. And then after I knocked him out, I'm sitting there on the stool trying to figure out what's going on. You know, my corner's celebrating. The fans are celebrating. I'm like, yeah, it's done, cool. I'm watching him telling John and his corner, no mas, tomenarse. You know, like I'm down, no more. And you know, and then me standing up when the bell sounds and walking over there, and John telling me, nope, it's done, go back to your corner. So again, I start celebrating. I'm like, whoa, yeah. And I turn around and we're supposed to be fighting. You know, that's I had left the ring before that third round had. You know, I left the ring when the third round didn't start. When I was supposed to win. Which is a big error on my part. You know, I should have stayed in there, obviously, until I guess, I don't know when. Still pretty confusing and infuriating. So I'm really disappointed in the sport. I'm really disappointed in John. I'm really disappointed, you know, in myself. So I'm gonna keep hunting. You know, I got 5 more weeks of hunting season. I'm still training a ton. You know, I'm still doing 2 or 3 workouts a day when I'm not up in the mountains. But this is. Yeah, I'm not there yet.
And, you know, Tim, you know, just an update as well. What's the outcome with appealing the decision? Is that still something that you're interested in? And if so, are there any updates on that process?
No, I haven't done anything official with the Athletic Commission. Again, another level in which I'm just disappointed that me as an athlete, I have to appeal a rule violation when they openly acknowledge that there was one. You know, post-fight in their release, they said, you know, if there were a few different rules that were broken that night, and if he wants to appeal those that ruling, then he's more than welcome to do that. Like, how asinine is that? Then an athletic commission's like, yeah, rules were broken, but you know, we're not going to do anything. Just again, stoking the fire of me being pissed off at the sport. You know, it's wrong that I would have to do anything, so I'm not going to. And like that's you know, I'm a pretty straightforward black and white guy, and when rules are broken, it's just how it's supposed to be, and I'm not going to do something to, I don't know. Even worse is like the MMA community. If I go and appeal it, it's like I look like the bitch. I'm the one that's like complaining about the outcome of the fight. That's not how I am. That's not. I'm not complaining. I'm just a straightforward person. I like things being the way that they're supposed to be, which is just and right. Which wasn't the case on that night. So I don't know.
Yeah, no,
It seems like a lose-lose.
Yeah, I completely understand where you're coming from. We noticed that I remember Renzo Gracie was on Ariel Helwani's show just not too long ago, and he was talking about he was saying how much of a huge fan he is of yours, loves to watch you compete. His advice was basically to let it go. I can understand sort of how tough that would be, judging from the events that took place. Did you see what Renzo said, and did you think about that in any way?
Yeah, I have great respect for that man. He's in a very short list of guys that have been very inspirational in my entire career. And I didn't see his specific words. Somebody had told me about, kind of summarized what he had said. And so I was encouraged by what he said, but I do agree with him. I think his perspective is correct.
And, before we get off the subject, obviously, I think this situation is a good precedent for the future to show really what kind of rules in MMA exist and how some of them are a bit faulty. Do you think some of these rules need to be amended for the future? Obviously, this is something that can reoccur in the future, and possibly the situation could open people's eyes to, some of the rules in MMA that don't really make a lot of sense.
Well, a lot of the rules exist. They're just not enforced. I could just go down this litany of examples of Andrei Arlovsky versus Rumble Johnson when the timekeeper didn't, ring the bell at the end of the round, and that's when Rumble Johnson breaks Arlovsky's jaw and gets a knockdown, and subsequently kind of ends up winning that fight. That's after the bell. It was at like 5 minutes and 20 seconds.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm sure we all know that rounds are 5 minutes.
Yeah.
And then a round is 5 minutes, a break is 1 minute. It's not 1 minute and 30 seconds like Yoel get. It's 1 minute. And if you don't follow the rules, there has to be repercussions. But seemingly there aren't any. The refs are cowards, and as are the judges, and then the fans are even worse because they won't back up a ref when he makes a decision. And and so. Man, the rules are in place, just nobody's enforcing them, both in performance-enhancing drugs, timekeeping, shorts grabbing, eye poking. The rules are there, just nobody's following them and nobody's enforcing them.
Yeah, we even had our own incident here. It was when there was the debut of the flyweights, of course. Ian McCall faced Mighty Mouse, and that fight actually ended in a draw, but due to the scorecards not being tallied up correctly, I believe Mighty Mouse was declared the winner. So that's another sort of crazy incident. It just seems like every week or so, like you said, something's happening, rules are being, I guess, broken, nothing's being done. Do you think there maybe needs to be a bit of a shake-up in I don't know, MMA judging or reffing or something to that degree, or the State Athletic Commission?
Yeah, absolutely. I don't know, maybe with a cattle prod. Ultimately, I'm told that it falls on the responsibility of the athlete. So, I'm supposed to go to the athletic commission and officially appeal and protest something that's asinine. It's the athletic commission's job to make sure that the officiating and the judging occurs correctly. It's not the athlete's. The athlete's job is supposed to go out there and fight, and he's supposed to execute. His athleticism within the guys, within the limitations of the sport, and those limitations are the rules. But I guess the rules don't exist. So I guess I'm going to bring a bat to my next fight. Or I'll just ask Yoel if I could borrow the stool that he's sitting on, and I'll beat him with the stool. And I guess that would be legal as well. But he wouldn't have gotten up, so I'd have to go get a different stool.
And I was going to say, Tim, obviously it's a rematch that people would want to see. Is that still something you'd be interested in, fighting Yoel again in the future?
No, I give two shits. I told John McCarthy before the fight, He's going to cheat when he starts losing. He started cheating when he was losing, and I don't think that'll be any different again. Like I knocked him out at the end of the second round. That should be represented in my record. It's like, no, I don't want to fight a cheater again. After a guy I already knocked out. So no, on two different levels.
Mm. Now, Tim, you mentioned how you're disappointed in the sport of MMA. Judging by the Twitterverse, it seems that the fans are interested in seeing you compete at a Metamoris against possibly a guy like a Forrest Griffin. Another possible fun matchup will be you against Chael Sonnen. I mean, given your fantastic grappling, would that be something you'd be interested in possibly?
Yeah, I would love it. I'll grapple both those guys on the same day. I'll wear a Speedo when I grapple Chael Sonnen, and then I'll wear a mini skirt when I grapple Forrest Griffin. Totally down for it. I'd have a blast. I love grappling. I have great respect for both those guys, and I think we'd put on a great show. So, Metamoris, they can call me, and they're going to get one response from me, which is yes. I know that my team has been contacted regarding that, and they asked me if I'd be down for it, and I just straight up said yes. You could give me a list of 20 opponents, and I'd say yes to all 20 opponents.
Yeah, I think that would be absolutely awesome, and a lot of people would love to see that. Now, I've got a question for you, Tim. You say, obviously, you're a big advocate of competing clean, drug-free, cleaning up the sport of mixed martial arts. You mentioned that you've got a lot of respect for Forrest Griffin and Chael Sonnen. I'm just curious, if you were to compete against Sonnen in a grappling comp, would there be any hesitation on your part given Sonnen's history of failed tests?
That's something that we talked to Metamoris about and whatever the state that we'd be competing in. There'd have to be some checks and balances in place regarding performance-enhancing drugs, especially because grappling jiu-jitsu is a true martial art. And I as much as I enjoy both those guys as people, I care about the reputation of that sport even more. So I'd want to ensure that, we have clean athletes that are trying to do the right thing, which is be a martial artist.
Sure.
And Tim, before you fought at UFC 178, you mentioned somewhere that you would consider dropping down to welterweight to possibly fight Robbie Lawler if you won the title. I'm just wondering, obviously you're a bit frustrated with MMA, but have you thought any more about a possible drop to welterweight? Is it something that's possible?
Yeah, it's something that's very possible. I'm a big, strong dude, but obviously I'm super short for my division, 185. I'll find guys like Luke Rockhold, Michael Bisping, and Hodge Gracie. Like Yoel and Rafael Natal, they're both like 6 foot and 6'1", and they're like the shortest guys I've fought, I think, in that division. So, there are some major advantages to moving down to 170. It's something that, we've talked about and kicked around a lot. And I can make it, I enjoy being 230, 240, but, a cut to 170, I've been there before, and it wouldn't be impossible.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you mentioned before if you think that Robbie would possibly win the fight against Hendricks, and Robbie's obviously a guy that you've already beaten in Strikeforce, and that'll make for an interesting fight for the title. I know last time people had a few fan questions in regards to if Robbie was to lose and Hendricks was to remain champion, would you still drop down to fight Hendricks as well?
I think stylistically, both those fights are fun for me. The only problem is my brain, man. Both those guys hit so hard. Johny, I've never been hit by Johny. Just watching how he hits and the guys that he's put down, it's obvious he hits hard. And I have been hit by Robbie, and God, that guy hits like a freight train.
Yeah.
So, I'd love to get in there and tussle with both of them. I think it'd be a lot of fun.
Great, Tim. Now, we let the fans know that you were coming on the show, so we've got a couple of fan questions to ask you. I'll kick it off with a question from NightFox66. His question is, you've been very clear about your feelings about Vitor Belfort. What are your thoughts on these extra tests the UFC are making Vitor take, and do you believe he'll pass?
Yeah, well, I hope he passes. We've seen pictures of him of late, like whether he's a little fatter than we've ever seen him ever, or he's a little skinnier than we've ever seen him ever. Well, guess what? Steroids work, and that's what happens to a body when you don't get to use what you've been using. And so, one of two things are going to happen. He's going to fail a steroid test moving towards this fight against Chris Weidman, or he's going to try to be clean, and he's going to get injured, or he's going to look like a gay giraffe. Either one of those instances, Chris Weidman will freight train him, and or he won't show because he failed a test.
Wow, interesting. Now, I've got another question from the fans. It's from the GOAT. Tim, could you confirm this? You started fighting in 1996 and you had 31 amateur fights, only having your first pro fight in 2001. Is this true? And if so, why did you wait such a long time to go pro?
Yes, it's true, but kind of true. There wasn't really like pro and amateur back then. That's a really long time ago. I'm really old. There were only a few states that had sanctioned MMA bouts within the athletic commission. So a whole bunch of those, I'm using my fingers in quotation fingers when I say amateur fights, weren't amateur. Like I got paid to do them. So whether it was on an Indian reservation because it was illegal in the state, or I was down in Mexico, which doesn't even have an athletic commission, or I didn't at the time, or I was in the Bahamas, or wherever I was, a lot of those fights didn't have a way to appear on your official professional record. By a lot, I mean like half of them. So, yes, it's true.
Wow.
And the final question here is from Silverfan. He'd like to know, with Anderson Silva back in the UFC, would you be open to fighting him one day if the opportunity arises in the middleweight division? And he'd also like you to give your prediction for Silva versus Diaz.
Yes, man. And drop him a dime, I would come back to fight that guy. Even though I hate the sport, I love that guy, and he's been a guy that's like, in my perspective, I've been a purist of a martial artist in the sport. Never failing any tests, always showing up to fight, being a true artist. And what he does, he's like a violent ballerina in the cage. It's beautiful. Nick and Anderson. Dude, I don't even know. I can't make a prediction on that. Besides, I will be tuned in. I will be glued to the TV. I'm a fan of both those guys on so many different levels, and I'm so excited to see that fight.
Oh, absolutely. You and us both and the rest of the world. Now, Tim, we're going to finish up this interview with something quick that we do. We did it with you last time, the Submission Radio Tap-Out round. Fire off a whole bunch of fun questions, and you answer with the first thing that comes to your mind. Are you ready?
Yes, sir.
All right, Tim, give us your ultimate Frisbee team.
Ultimate Frisbee team.
Yep.
Alistair Overeem, Cowboy, me, Landon, Frankie Lester, and Jerry Rice.
Awesome.
Wow, that's scary. Now, what's the favorite gun that you own?
Say that again?
What's your favorite gun that you own?
Oh, my goodness. Just one?
Well, you know what? You know what? We don't want to leave anyone out, hurt any guns' feelings. Maybe give us like a top 3 if you like.
All right.
Okay, all right. Well, my favorite precision rifle, I have a 338 bolt action Lapua, and I can shoot almost, it pushes out to almost 2 miles. So that gun, it warms my heart every time I touch it. When I left my Halo sniper team and this kind of special forces unit that I was on, they gave me a Colt 1911 that was engraved with my roster number and the team that I was on. So on a sentimental level, that gun is very, very special. And then lastly, I have a Glock that it's a short story that the guy that I took that Glock from, he tried to kill me, and so now I have his Glock. So that gun, more as a trophy, not as the 1911 has sentimental value. This one doesn't. This one is just like, don't try to kill me. It's your gun, and it'll go well for you.
Well, we learned something there. Don't try and kill Tim Kennedy, Jesus. This question comes from a fan, actually, Rudolph. If you are in your 30s now and you could come back to your 20-year-old self, what advice would you give for training and fighting?
Yeah. Don't jump out of as many airplanes. It's bad on the knees and the hips and the back. Swim more and spend more time in classes, not sparring.
Okay.
Wow. Well, this is something that people can take away from the interview if they're young and they're listening. Now, Tim, we hear you're a great cook. What's a signature dish that you're known for? And let me just preface that with saying we've heard you cook up some great salmon.
All right, man, like my guns, which I own, a few hundred of them. You're asking me to narrow it down to three of my favorite. Equally so, I love food. So you're in all the different ways that you can blow somebody's mind with the deliciousness that you prepare. And can you just give us one? That's a painful thing that you're asking. But
it's the tap out round, Tim. It's the tap out round.
I'm gonna give you some Texas barbecue. I'm gonna smoke.
Oh yeah.
For 8 hours, some brisket and ribs. I'm gonna serve it with some bourbon and beer, and you're gonna have a peppery barbecue sauce to go with it.
Yeah, we're big foodies, and actually in Melbourne, there's a lot of those smokehouse places opening up. So you've definitely won our hearts over with that one, Tim. Here's a question though: how well does Tim Kennedy go in the Deer Hunter arcade game?
I feel ironic. I play that game a lot. Every time, my wife likes some of the wing places here, so we'll go there to watch the fights.
Yeah.
Or we'll go watch some college football, and I'll try to stake out the Deer Hunter game, and maybe I will or maybe I won't challenge some of the people in the bar to a little face off.
Yeah.
A little 1-on-1. So I do really well in that game.
Do you ever hustle anyone? Are you ever am I holding it properly? Which is the button? And then you're like, bam, bam, bam. Well, the deers are gone.
Yeah, absolutely. The hustler by the pool table, and I'm the hustler in the arcade room.
Yeah.
Tim, this is going to be another head scratcher for you, but let's give it a go. You have a very comedic side. In your opinion, give us the top 3 comedies of all time.
Top 3 comedies of all time. It's a mad world. I'm going old school there. If you haven't seen it, look it up. It's absolutely amazing. I'm just going to say Bill Murray, period.
Yeah.
From Groundhog's Day to his Christmas version of Scrooged to it's Bill Murray, period. To current day where, he's pretending like he's a zombie so he can live and have a social life. And lastly, I think I'm going to go with kind of the dark side of humor, which are the military humor. And you have to look for them. They're usually in army movies, and
Inglourious Bastards.
Yes, Inglourious Bastards, good example. Or most recently in Fury, where they're back in the tank after the young kid went and got to hook up with one of the French women, and they start kind of jabbing at him and yeah, you're a woman banging, whiskey drinking superstar. That little insight into kind of the military humor is acute and precise, and it's right on. And I think I peed myself in that one line when I was in the movie theater.
Yeah, we saw on your Twitter that you watched it, so we're definitely going to check that out. Tim, if you could have one rematch, which one would you choose?
One rematch. Jacare.
Wow, that would be amazing. And sorry.
I'm not sure if you saw that fight. It's super close, razor thin. I thought I won it. I thought I won actually 4 rounds to 1. But judging gave it to him. And another reason why I hate the sport. But I love him. I like him as dude. I like the way that he fights. I like that he comes to bring it. I love his grappling heavy approach. I like that he hits hard. And we're both top 10 in our division right now, and that'd be a fun fight.
And finally, Tim, to wrap the soul up, when will we see Tim Kennedy coming to Australia?
Next week.
Yeah.
I love that place. Kyle Noak is, one of my very close friends, and every time that we're together, we're trying to figure out schedules where we can both be there at the same time. I just love everything about that place. I love the mentality. I love the independence of the people. I love the strength and grit of the men. I love I love the nature there. I love the animals there. I can't wait to get there. So I'm going to say not soon enough.
Well, Tim, I think you just won over even more Aussie fans, and we would welcome you into the country with open arms anytime. Guys, you can follow Tim on Twitter at Tim Kennedy MMA. Just scrolling through his Twitter, we found a whole bunch of funny stuff. And if you haven't seen what Tim Kennedy wore for Halloween, that's an absolute must. Tim, it's always a pleasure having you on the show. We always learn a lot, and it's great having you on again. Thank you so much.
Absolutely, man. I really appreciate it, and thanks for having me on.